90 teams to go on my road to predict all 131 teams this college football season. We are now moving on to the Virginia Tech Hokies, and this is the team that, well, figures coming into the 2022 year that maybe they needed a little bit of a change, right? It's been not really a great past couple years for this Virginia Tech team. Like, they've been solid overall, but a change was felt like it needed to be made. So they're bringing in Brent Pry, the old defensive coordinator from Penn State, and defense was at times a strength for this team last year. However, that offense definitely needs some work, and they're losing a lot of players on that side of the ball. So, can the Virginia Tech Hokies and Brent Pry be able to take that next step and get to a solid bowl game in 2022? Or will there be a couple years of rebuilding and reloading for the Virginia Tech program? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football offseason, which, yeah, guys, that's going to include your favorite team, providing they're one of the 131 in the FBS. So hit the subscribe button, ring the bell to know when your favorite team gets uploaded. And the Virginia Tech fans that are out there watching this video, you guys are going to know this team a lot better than me. And that goes in general. You guys will know your favorite team a lot more than I do. So if you feel like I missed something, you want to add something on to the video, anything like that, please go ahead, hit the subscribe, or go ahead, leave it in the comment section down below. Anything you feel like you need to add, and I'll go ahead and read through them. Virginia Tech 2022. Let's get into it. My 11th ranked team in the ACC coming into the 2022 college football season. Last year was an okay year again for Virginia Tech. 6-6 in the regular season, 4-4 in conference. Did end up getting smothered in their bowl game by the Maryland Terrapins. I mean, just not a good look for Virginia Tech in that game. It was like 50-10, somewhere around there was the score of that game. So definitely not a score that Virginia Tech fans would have wanted to see. But overall, definitely some things to work on this team. The offense last year, 361 yards with around 24 points per game last season. Those are some of the worst marks statistically in the ACC. And when you look at their defense, it was pretty solid. 385 yards and 23 points per game. Again, defense was at times a strength for this team last year. It's what won them games like North Carolina, some other games on their schedule last year as well. But taking a look at some of the talent that Brent Pry is going to need to kind of deal with leaving here, if it'll show up, there it is. But head coach Brent Pry, of course, coming in, old defensive coordinator from Penn State. He's going to be losing a lot of offensive talent that definitely could have helped him out here in 2022. So starting quarterback Braxton Burmeister is gone. 1,960 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions, along with being the team's second leading rusher with around 500 yards and 2 tutties on the ground for this team last year. So definitely losing that starting quarterback. However, they have some people coming in through the transfer portal that we'll talk about later. I thought Burmeister was a solid quarterback. Not really anything spectacular, though, in his time with Virginia Tech. You also are losing starting running back Raheem Blackshear, 760 yards and 6 touchdowns for this team last year. Wide receiver Trey Turner and Tavion Robinson, who I felt were the 2 best weapons on this team last year. And that's also proven statistically. They were by far and away the 2 leading receivers on this team. Turner, 675 yards and 3 touchdowns. Robinson, 559 yards and 5 touchdowns for this team a year ago. So losing some weapons on the offensive side of the ball. Lots of offensive linemen gone off this team as well. And when you look at the defensive end, the defensive side, not really a whole lot of quantity leaving, but a lot of quality leaving this defense. Jordan Williams, a defensive tackle, 2.5 sacks last year. Linebacker Amari Barno, 35 tackles, 3.5 sacks last year. Jermaine Waller had 45 tackles, 5 passes defended, and 4 interceptions for this team a season ago. And then Tay Daly clocked in at 73 tackles last year. So, again, not a whole lot of quantity, but a lot of quality leaving the defensive side of the ball. And sometimes that's what matters. When you look at players that they have coming back or coming in, Grant Wells as a transfer quarterback over from Marshall, that figures to be getting the starting job, although probably will end up competing with Jason Brown for that starting quarterback spot. Now, I happen to be a believer in Grant Wells. I really like his game. I like the way that he plays. And I think Grant Wells should end up being that starting quarterback for Virginia Tech in 2022. It wouldn't necessarily surprise me a ton to see Jason Brown start, maybe a little bit, of a surprise. But I'm going to say that Grant Wells should get that starting job for this Hokie team. Running back should be led by Malachi Thomas and Jalen Holston. They were the 3rd and 5th leading rushers on this team, respectively, from a season ago. Thomas had somewhere around 400 yards, so good there for Malachi Thomas. Probably should end up being that running back 1 option, with Holston being the backup. Caleb Smith, Dwayne Lofton, and Nick Gallo, some guys that are coming back as pass catchers, but they're also getting a transfer over from Temple, and that's Jaden Blue. So probably won't fully replace a guy as talented like Turner or a guy like Robinson, who also has left the program, but still should be a nice solid option at the wide receiver position for Virginia Tech. They have a couple freshmen coming in that position as well. On the defensive side, Taiwan Garbutt and Norrell Poland, couple defensive linemen coming back for this team. Dax Holyfield was the leading tackler and, was the leading tackler and had the most sacks on this team a season ago. You guys know how much I like Dax Holyfield's game. Alan Tisdale, also another name that is coming back for this defense, as well as Chamari Connor, Nasir Peoples, and Dorian Strong coming back in the defensive backs for this Virginia Tech team. So all in all, definitely not probably as talented of a roster as you'd like to have, but still some solid players here on this team as we take a look at the Hokie schedule. And there's definitely a game that jumps out to you here, and it's that rivalry game right up here against West Virginia. That's the non-conference game that sticks out at you. Otherwise, there is another fairly interesting non-conference game, but it's later in the year on the road against Liberty. That's definitely going to be a fairly interesting game. I know Liberty doesn't have Malik Willis anymore, doesn't have some of their other weapons, but I think people are still going to be sleeping on that Liberty team. You also got road games. You also have a road game in non-conference against Old Dominion and a home game against Wofford. 2 games that don't really interest me that much, but when you look at the rest of the schedule in conference play, you got home games against Boston College, Miami, Georgia Tech, and Virginia, and then you also got road games against North Carolina, Pitt, NC State, and Duke. So let's go ahead and kind of jump into some things here. Again, that West Virginia game right here, that could be a very, very, very interesting game. I'm very excited to watch that game. Going to be on a Thursday night. I think there's going to be a lot to look forward to coming in this game. And specifically, it could be a pretty telling game for both programs. It could really tell a lot about who might make a bowl game and who might not make a bowl game, things like that, right? But that could be a very pivotal game early in the college football season. When you get into conference play, things don't get easier. Boston College could still be a solid team this year. They're returning their 1-2 punch with Phil Jurkovic, Zay Flowers, both of them coming back. You got tricky road games on the road against Pitt. You got to go on the road against NC State. 2 teams that figure to be pretty solid this year, as well as on the road against North Carolina, another team that figures to, while they've disappointed in years prior, still figured to be a fairly solid team coming into 2022. Some trickier home games here as well. Virginia, that's going to be a very interesting game at the end of the year. I've already talked about Boston College. You got that home game against West Virginia that's going to be tricky. At home against Miami, bringing in Mario Cristobal as that head coach. There's a lot of landmines on the schedule for Virginia Tech. But the key thing here is that stretch from West Virginia all the way to NC State. So that stretch from West Virginia all the way to NC State, that is going to be the telling thing about this Virginia Tech schedule is can they win 1, maybe 2 games through there in order to get in to a bowl game later down the line. I don't do game-by-game predictions. I do a more percentage-based outlook to help me predict a team's record. So if the game's in red, I just don't see you winning the game. If the game is in orange, you're still probably not going to win the game, but hey, it's college football and upsets can happen. Yellow are your 50-50 or high upset potential games. Yellow-green are games that you should win, but watch out for teams on the other side of the ball, and games in green, you're probably good to win. The only reason the Old Dominion game's in yellow-green because it is a road game, but I'm going to favor Virginia Tech in that one. Should be able to beat Wofford. Georgia Tech and Duke figure to be 2 teams that might have their struggles in the ACC this season. And then Liberty on the road. Yes, that's a Liberty team that does not have Malik Willis, does not have some of their other weapons offensively, defensively, whatever have you. However, I do feel a lot of people are going to be sleeping on that Liberty team, and it's definitely a game that I feel like might provide some struggles for this Virginia Tech team, especially if this is the Virginia Tech team that down the line has proven that this may not be that great of a football team. If it proves out that way, that could be a struggle game. And then that game later at home against Virginia as well might be looking ahead to that rivalry game there. When you look at this Virginia Tech schedule, though, lots of games in yellow and orange. And to be perfectly honest with you guys, I'm kind of leaning in the games that are in yellow and orange. I'm kind of leaning the opposite way with all those games that are in yellow or orange. First off, I think that stretch right there between West Virginia and NC State, I think that is one of the tougher stretches in the conference this year. I mean, you have that non-conference game against West Virginia that I'm leaning the way of West Virginia in that game, but then you also have to go on the road to play North Carolina, on the road at Pitt. Those are going to be two not very fun games on the road. You got a home game here against Miami that, again, I think that's going to be a very, very tough home game. Going on the road to play NC State, a team that figures to be pretty good in 2022. I don't necessarily see, no, I would not be surprised if they got one win through that stretch. But again, I think you have to get 2, maybe 3 through that stretch. And I don't know if I see that happening for this Virginia Tech team. Otherwise, a home game against Boston College, that could be a fairly tricky game. Again, Boston College just wasn't the healthiest team last year, but they're returning Jerkovic, returning Flowers, returning some other guys on that team as well that can really help that offense get to that next level. This is just a very, very tough schedule for Virginia Tech, and in my opinion, it's a fairly, at times it's a favorable schedule, but it can be an unfavorable schedule as well. I mean, some of your home games are pretty tricky with Boston College, Virginia, West Virginia, Miami. You got to go on the road to play some pretty solid teams, on the road against North Carolina, on the road against Pitt, on the road against NC State. And it's not going to surprise me to see this team make a bowl game this year. In fact, I think they're going to win a game that they quote-unquote shouldn't. Like maybe they beat Miami. Maybe they beat West Virginia. Who knows? Maybe they go on the road and beat one of those teams I have in orange. The percentages should say that this team scores around 6-6, 7-5. But I'm actually going to have Virginia Tech at 5-7. I do think it's going to take a year for Brent Pry to kind of settle in, get his system going. And then I looked at 2023 to maybe where Virginia Tech is able to take that step next in the right direction. Would it surprise me to see this team make a bowl game? No, absolutely not. I think the best case scenario for this team is, of course, 7-5. That's the way that the percentages are working out here that I've thrown up on screen. But for this Virginia Tech team, I think, yeah, they win all those games in green. I think they're going to have trouble finding that 6th win in 2022. So there you have it, my predictions for the Virginia Tech Hokies. In 2022, I know it's not what Virginia Tech fans would like to hear, but I do think with Brent Pry coming in, there are going to be some good things to look forward to down the line in Blacksburg. So thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, do anything you can to help support the channel. If you could, it would mean a lot to me. But also remember to play hard and tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.